Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. It's April 28th, 2023. We're studying Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, entitled Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 3. Chapter 13, text 3. Okay. So we'll start with the Sanskrit words responsibly. Chapter 13, text 3. Kshetragyam cha api mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragyayo jnanam yat tat jnanam matam mama. Okay, chapter 13, text 3, Bhagavad Gita. Kshetragyam chapimam vedi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragyayor jnanam yatat jnanam matam mama. Kshetragyam chapimam vedi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragyanam gyayor yatat jnanam matam mama. Kshetragyam chapimam vedi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragyayor jnanam yatat jnanam matam mama. Kshetragyam chapimam vedi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragyayor jnanam yatat jnanam matam mama. Would someone online like to chant the verse?
Kshetragyam chapimam vidi
Kshetragyam chapimam vedi
sarva kshetreshu bharata
sarva kshetreshu bharata
kshetra kshetragyayor jnanam
kshetra kshetragyayor jnanam
yatat jnanam matam mama.
yatat jnanam matam. Would anyone else like to lead the chanting? If not, we'll go to the word meanings. Kshetragyam, the knower. Cha, also. Api, certainly. Mam, me. Didi, no. Sarva, all. Kshetreshu, in bodily fields. Bharata, O son of Bharat. Kshetra, field of activities. The body. Kshetragyayor, the knower of the field. Jnanam,
Jnanam,
knowledge.
knowledge.
Yat,
Yat,
that which is taught.
that which is taught.
Tat,
That,
that.
that.
Jnanam,
Jnanam,
knowledge. Matam,
some
opinion.
opinion.
Mama,
Mama,
that.
that.
Translation. This is Krishna speaking to Arjuna. O son of Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. While discussing the subject of this body and the owner of the body, the soul and the supersoul, we shall find three different topics of study: the Lord, the living entity, and matter. In every field of activities, in every body, there are two souls, the individual soul and the supersoul. Because the supersoul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna says, I am also the knower, but I am not the individual owner of the body. I am the super knower. I am present in every body as the Paramatma or supersoul. One who studies the subject matter of the field of activity and the knower of the field very minutely in terms of this Bhagavad Gita can attain to knowledge. The Lord says, quote, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as the supersoul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. He knows all the different bodies of all the various species of life. A citizen may know everything about his patch of life, but the king knows not only his palace, but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the supreme proprietor of all bodies. The body consists of the senses. The Supreme Lord is Rishikesh, which means controller of the senses. He is the original controller of the senses, just as the king is the original controller of all the activities of the state, and the citizens are secondary controllers. The Lord also says, I am also the knower. This means that he is the super knower. The individual soul knows only his particular body. In the Vedic literature, it is stated as follows. Kshetrani sharirani bijam chapi subhashubhe tani veti sayogatma tata kshetra uchate. This body is called the kshetra, and within it dwells the owner of the body and the Supreme Lord, who knows both the body and the owner of the body. Therefore, he is called the knower of all fields. The distinction between the field of activities, the owner of activities, and the supreme owner of activities is described as follows. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and the constitution of the supersoul is known in terms of Vedic literature as Jnanam. That is the opinion of Krishna. To understand both the soul and the supersoul as one yet distinct is knowledge. One who does not understand the field of activity and the knower of activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, and Purusha, the enjoyer of the nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature and the individual soul. One should not confuse the three in their different capacities. One should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. This material world, which is the field of activities, is nature, and the enjoyer of nature is the living entity, and above them both is the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. It is stated in the Vedic language, Bhokta Bhogyam, Ritaram Chamatva Sarvam Proktam Tri Vidham Brahmam Etat. There are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti is Brahman, is the field of activities, and the Jiva individual soul is also Brahman and is trying to control material nature. And the controller of both of them is also Brahman, but he is the factual controller. In this chapter, it will be also explained that out of the two knowers, one is fallible and the other is infallible. One is superior and the other is subordinate. One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly that I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. There are different kinds of bodies, and there are different owners of the body. Because each individual soul has his individual capacity of lording it over material nature, there are different bodies. But the Supreme also is present in them as the controller. The word cha is significant, for it indicates the total number of bodies. That is the opinion of Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan. Krishna is the supersoul present in each and every body apart from the individual soul. And Krishna explicitly says here that the supersoul is the controller of both the field of activities and the finite enjoyer. Hare Krishna. So I'm gonna recite a few more mantras to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering. These mantras are found really starting at the beginning of the introduction to Bhagavad Gita as it is, so you can listen or chant along. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Badan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Nustam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Kate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatu Yubhyash Cha Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 13, Text 3. Kshetriyam chapimam vedi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetra gyayor gyanam yataj gyanam matam mama. Oh, Sayana Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Hare Krishna. Okay. So, as Prabhupada says here, in this one verse, we find three topics of study. Three topics of study. So this constitutes, we'll call it, real knowledge. Knowledge that to realize these three topics and their interrelationship, this liberates us from miseries. The miseries of material existence. So this is not just data or information, right? This is not just data or information. This is actually transformational, transcendental knowledge. So this is important. This is not just something superfluous, but this is, the spirit soul that is us, we're made of chit potency. Chit potency means consciousness. And it means we're naturally seeking knowledge. We might seek it in the newspaper or the stock market or gossip or the sports page or information and data, and we won't be satisfied. We're made of such Chidananda Vigraha. That's who we are. So we're seeking eternity. We're seeking bliss. we're seeking knowledge, cognizance. And then our misery, our emptiness, our hollowness, our torment is that we're seeking this eternity, knowledge, and bliss in ways and in places that leave us empty, leave us with nothingness. And so we keep, as St. Francis said, we're searching for what is searching. So we're searching externally in that which is really dead for the life of the soul. Vidyavadu jivanam. Okay. So here's actual knowledge that gives us the nectar for which we are hankering. Nanda buddhi vardhanam pratipadam kunam mitash vardhanam. Sarvatma snaparam prabhvijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana. The ever-expanding ocean of spiritual knowledge. So to understand, okay, so 3 topics of study. We could say 4, but that adds a distinction, right? So Prabhupada talks about the distinction between the field of activities, the owner of activities, and the supreme owner of activities is described as follows. All right, so there's the field. We can see kshetra, field, griha. We can see the field. The field is this body. Okay, so just like an agriculturalist has the field. The agriculturist is not the field. The agriculturist works in the field. Okay, so this body is the kshetra. This body is the field. Okay, it's made of Umir, Apo, Nalo, Vayu, Kamana, Buddha, Evacha, Ahankara, Mityame, Bina, Prakriti, Ashtana. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. 5 Mahabhutas. 5 gross material elements, the most subtle of the gross material elements is ether or space, and then 3 subtle material elements: mind, intelligence, and false ego. Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So those are subtle material elements. To use an analogy, right, here we are, we're all on the computers. So the computer has the hardware. It's like earth, water, fire, ether. So, okay, but then there's the software. There's the software. The software that's like material mind, intelligence, and false ego. So we're not the hardware, we're not the software, we're the operator of the computer. So that's the kshetra jnana. So we're the knower of the field. There's the field and the knower of the field. Okay. So, all right. So bayam duti vidiveshatasya. So that's it. We've just solved all the problems of life. Yay. So yes. So confusing the knower of the field with the field, that is misidentification with the eternal spirit self, with the temporary body. This is the root cause of all insecurity, all sense of unworthiness, all greed, all lust, all anxiety. We've all experienced all these things. All fear, all security. Misidentification of the eternal, timeless, etc. Knower of the field with the field. And so these truths can be expanded with unlimited nuance and infinite subtlety. At the same time they can be reduced to in very simple terms. So Prabhupada would say, Krishna consciousness is simple for the simple and crooked for the crooked. So this Krishna consciousness, it is it's so simple, a child gets it, chant and be happy. And it's so complex that the greatest intellectual scholars can't get a clue without devotion. Bhakti mama vijanati avanyash tasmi tattvata tatumam tapsturgetva vishteta devantaram. Krishna says, only by devotion can I be known as I am. Only by devotion are these truths revealed. Otherwise, maya paritakena, even if someone is so-called smart, has lots of data information degrees, but their knowledge will be stolen by illusion. Maya paritakena. Krishna says, he says, idam tute yatamam pavakshamyami yanasuyave gyanam viganam saritam. So, but he says to Arjuna at the beginning of the 9th chapter, because you're my devotee, because you're my friend, because you're not envious of me, therefore I'm revealing these truths to you, And because you're not and realizing this, acting on it, then you'll be relieved of the miseries of material existence. So it's knowledge, and practically philosophy is meant to be not just search for truth, it's also practically applying those truths. So there's the field and there's the knower of the field. We are that irreducible quanta of consciousness that is the knower of the field. We're the knower because we're made of chit potency, means consciousness. So we have an experience. We experience our experience. Yes, I'm experiencing the sensation of tightness in my back. I'm experiencing the emotion of joy. I'm experiencing the emotion of fear. I'm experiencing the thought that what's my schedule today? Okay, so we're experiencing the activities. We're experiencing physical sensation. We're experiencing emotion. We're experiencing the thoughts of the mind. It means we're not the experience. We're the experience. We're the knower of the field. Okay. So, or another analogy, just like there's the car and the driver of the car, the field and the knower of the field. So we want to understand, I'm not this car. At the same time, it's important to know the car. Oh yeah, sure. I use the car to serve me on this journey. I use it in this journey wherever I'm going, driving down the road, driving a 100-mile trip. This journey of self-realization, this journey towards love of God, love of Krishna. Yeah, we use this car to serve. Same time, example, Prabhupada often uses, we often use, like if we hear there's a car crash, we don't immediately say, oh, is the car okay? Is it in the junkyard? Did you get the insurance money? No, we say, was anyone injured? Did anyone die? Because we know the driver of the car is much more important than the car. The car is essentially made of dead stuff, metal, plastic, rubber. Maybe after we find out, oh, no one was injured, no one died, then we ask, oh, can you salvage the car? Can you get it repaired? But that's secondary. But we think, oh, how can you? So this body is like a car. We want to take care of it. We want to take care of it. And while taking care of it, to cultivate realization, I'm not the car. I'm not the body. And without that realization, we will be in anxiety. Won't matter what we do otherwise. Won't matter what videos we see, what therapy we do. To the extent we misidentify the kshetra gyan with the kshetra, we will be in anxiety, we'll suffer. It will be a whole festival of misery. Guaranteed. Real knowledge. This is not bluff. This is real knowledge. Right. Yeah. So, okay. So then, yeah. And within here, and I'm going to say this, in my experience, this is unparalleled. It's straightforward. At the same time, it's unparalleled. And it's incomparable knowledge. It's infallible, incomparable, unparalleled. We won't find such clear knowledge or even 1% of it anywhere else. You don't need to trust me. You can search. Read our thousands of books, go here and there, and psychology books, philosophy books, whatever. And we might find things that align with these truths in Bhagavad Gita, and here things that align almost always mix with some fluff and bluff and like that. So here, just straight 100% knowledge. Okay. Krishna starts this chapter, well, in a few verses from now in the same chapter, Krishna talks about 19 elements of the process of knowledge. And the first one is humility. Srila Sanatana Goswami, he was a very aristocratic person. He was practically the prime minister of the land about 500 years ago. He was fluent in many languages, very wealthy, very successful. And he approached Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he said, he said, people think I'm great. They think I really got it together. And I'm such a fool that I believe them. So I'm approaching, because he said, but the truth is, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the truth is, I don't even know who I am. And I do know I'm suffering, and I don't even know why. Please instruct me, with a straw between his teeth. Similar, Arjuna at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. The beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was kind of like resisting. Oh, but I got this idea, I got this idea. The whole study, the first 55 verses or so. But then at some point, Arjuna says, Karpanya dosha patasvabhava prachamitvam brahma samuda chaitanya trayasyan nichaya ui tanme shishastayam sadiman from prapanam. Arjuna says, yes, that he says, now I've lost my composure due to weakness, and I'm confused, and in this condition, I ask you, please guide me, instruct me. Now I'm a soul, I'm a conditioned soul. Now I'm your shishya, now I'm your disciple, and please instruct me. I've lost all my composure due to, so humility. These are great personalities, Arjuna, Sanatan Goswami, but they approach just like we have the opportunity. We can approach Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, yeah, I've tried to do it my way. So of course, see, this process of Krishna consciousness, it is about following a tried, true, tested path to such that our original pure spiritual personality shines brightly. So it's not about, it's not about everyone becoming the same. No, it's about our original personality shining brightly. And then to the extent that we misidentify the Kshetra Gyan with the Kshetra, the field and the knower, to the extent that we don't make that distinction, then that's where we're just in confusion, depression, resentment, anxiety, completely bamboozled. So we can approach Srila Prabhupada. Please instruct me, please guide me. Now I'm your disciple. And in that way, Bharata Bhumite, Manushi Janmayar, not as Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasada Bhaya, Bhakti Lata. That way we have an opportunity, if we choose, to perfect our life. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say, just like the condition of the spirit soul, of the conditioned spirit soul, if we're drowning in the middle of the ocean, the Atlantic or the Pacific. So, okay, on our own, say maybe something. Well, I'm a pretty good swimmer. I was on the high school team. It won't matter. It won't matter if we're in the middle of the ocean. We don't have a chance. So Prabhupada says, so there's this transcendental boat for us to cross the ocean, and the boat is completely equipped. The boat is completely equipped. It's got the Vedas, it's got pure transcendental knowledge. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The pure devotee spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and the whole process of sadhana. So everything's there. And then Prabhupada would say, so everything's there and complete. And Prabhupada would emphasize, he emphasized. And you need to grab the lifeline. No one's going to do that for you. That's your opportunity, that's your responsibility. So we get to grab the lifeline, or we can continue with, no, I don't need a boat. I'm doing pretty good here. I'm doing pretty good here in the middle of the Pacific. Okay, that's our chance. Probably you need to grab the lifeline if we want to extend the analogy. So to get on that safe and secure boat, okay, safe and secure boat. So that's just like secure bliss. But Prabhupada will sometimes emphasize in that metaphor, even if we're lifted one, because we're struggling, we're grappling, we're getting water in our mouth, and we're going under. Okay, but even if someone comes along, even if we're lifted 1 inch above the water, that's also a relief. That's also a relief. Getting on the boat solidly, that's like that steady enthusiasm to engage in the original activity of the soul, devotional service to Krishna without failing, being infallible, consistent inspiration. But even if we're lifted, like here we are hearing Bhagavad Gita, we can feel ourselves just in a few minutes lifted from the greed and lust and anxiety of the lower modes of rajas and tamas, tadarajas, tamobhava, kamalabadash, navidam, stita sattve prasidati. I mean, just touching on devotional service, just for a few seconds, we can just chant Hare Krishna. We experience, even just an inch above, that's relieving too. And our opportunity is to be steady. Yeah. And that requires steadily realizing ourselves, seeing our weaknesses, our susceptibility, and taking shelter in the process Prabhupada has given us. So we're not the field, we're the knower of the field. We're not the car, we're the driver of the car. We're not the finger, we're the owner of the finger. Okay. So that's two entities, and then the third entity, and this is a theme in Bhagavad Gita. So sitting right next to us, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Desha Arjuna Tishtati, sitting right next to us in the region of the heart, is another kshetriya, another knower. And that's called the super soul. In Sanskrit, it's the Paramatma. It's the Paramatma. We are the Atma. And then there's Prabhupada has such amazing language, the super knower, the super consciousness. We are Atman, then there's para means above. There's Paramatma. So sitting right next to us in the region of the heart, there's an expansion, a full expansion of Krishna. That's why we could say there's four, because the Paramatma is Krishna, but also Krishna has his distinct existence there in Goloka Vrindavan. Premanjana Chinta Bhakti Vilochanena Shanta Sadeva Vidayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundarama Chintya Gunasvarupam Govinda Mati Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shama Sundar, Krishna himself, possessing innumerable transcendental attributes in whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eyes of devotion tinged with the salve of love. So there's Krishna playing his flute, Yamuna Tira Vanachari wandering on the banks of the Yamuna River with the cowherd boys and the gopis, and Krishna really isn't no contact with the material energy, but out of compassion, he expands as the Paramatma and Dantarasta, Paramana. He expands as the Paramatma to accompany us on our sojourn. So there's a full expansion of Krishna called Paramatma, super soul, sitting right next to us in the region of the heart. Of course, as we've developed devotion for Krishna, the devotee realizes Paramatma in the form of Shama Sundar. So this is Krishna's compassion. And whatever foolish, destructive things we do, Krishna as our Suridam Sarvabhutanam, as our best friend, continues to accompany us, always giving wise advice. Krishna says in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Mat chitta sarvat durgami mat prasada tarishasi atachat vama ankaram vinoshasi vinangshasi. Krishna says that, okay, if we listen to our material mind and material ego, we'll just continue to drown in the ocean of material existence. It can sound just like some abstract metaphor, but just imagine. That's a suffering condition, drowning. We're in evam janam, nipatitam, by pupe. Prahlad Maharaj uses the analogy of the material world like being stuck fallen in a well with a pit of poisonous snake. Samsara Davat Nalanita Loka Trinaya Karanya Ganaganath. The material world's like being in the middle of the forest in a blazing forest fire. These are hellish. These are agonizing conditions. So Krishna says, listen to the material mind, material ego, and our material mind and ego will always come. Like each day, it has like new ideas how to just make our life more miserable. convincing ourselves like, oh, that's a great idea. Let me try it that way. And we're free to do that. And Krishna says, but if you listen to Paramatma, listen to the super soul in the heart, who's always giving us caring, loving guidance, wise guidance. If we listen to the super soul, then we easily cross over. We easily get out of padam notation. We easily get out of this place where every step is full of danger. And then it's just like crossing over the amount of water in the hoofprint of a calf. It's a Vedic verse. And then it's like the Pacific Ocean just becomes just like take half a step. And that's through hearing the super soul. And that process that's described here, that's the process of bhakti. So there's Krishna, there's Paramatma in the heart, then there's us, the super soul, and us, the soul. Paramatma is the super soul. And then there's the body. And again, more just there's the gross body, the subtle body. Again, it's simple. It seems that we can expand it to unlimited distinctions. And the more distinctions we get, the more powerful we are in our spiritual process. Like the French modernist philosopher Descartes said, oh, I think, therefore I am. He went through this whole process and he got nice realization. He got, yes, I'm not the body. I'm not the body. He went through a whole process. I'm not this finger. Okay, I'm not the leg. But he didn't quite get distinction that, oh, I'm not the mind. He said, I am the thinking. Okay. So there's Bhagavad Gita. It takes, all that is good and wonderful and true, all those grains and drops of truth from everywhere. And it includes and transcends all. So we're not the body, we're not the mind. Okay. So, all right. So this is ontology. Ontology means the study of what is. So there's the body. There's the soul, there's the super soul, there's Krishna. Okay. So then that's called sambandha. Those are the basic existential tattvas or truths. Then there's abhideya. So what do we do with that now? Right. So with that understanding of who we are and who we're not, then we get to engage Jivera Sarupoi Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, Beta Prakash. Then we get to realize our original bliss by engaging in devotional service. The soul serving the super soul, the Atma serving the Paramatma. And that's the path of perfection. Called bhakti. And again, Paramatma is an expansion of Krishna, full expansion of Krishna, sitting right next to us in the region of our heart. So we're not forced. Krishna speaks the whole Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and right towards the end, he says, Vimisheta Sheshena. Yate Chasita Takpa. He says, now Arjuna, consider carefully what I have said, and then do as you wish to do. No force. If you want to continue this way, that way. Krishna's not saying I don't care, but once there's force or coercion, there's no love. So Krishna's not attached. He's not attached. He does want us to love him, to choose to love him, to voluntarily choose, yes. Yeah, I want to serve you. I want to serve you. And when we choose that, then it's like, oh, okay. And it's bliss for the soul. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajika Banoy Shravanani Shuddha Chitta Karye Udai. Love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. And it's awakened by this process of hearing and chanting. So Krishna wants that for us. And Krishna is self-satisfied. He's Atmarama. He's completely fulfilled, blissful beyond belief. And he wants that for us too. And we have an opportunity to add to Krishna's bliss. That's special. We have an opportunity to add to Krishna's bliss if we choose. He doesn't need it. He does wish that for us and for him in loving relationship. And so, okay. So conditioned soul by definition means we're conditioned, means we've gotten bamboozled, we've gotten confused about who we are and who we're not. We've forgotten who we are as servants of Krishna, spirit soul. Right? So then the process, if we not in a, but in, I mean, this we could do a whole month of class in discussion just on this verse in purport, because Prabhupada describes those four entities and their interrelationship, and Prabhupada describes different misconceptions that arise. Like, oh yeah, God in my heart, I am God. No, we're spirit and God's spirit. So we're not completely different from Krishna, and we're not exactly the same either. Just as the sun rays are not completely different from the sun globe. The sun rays emanate heat and light just like the sun globe, but the sun rays are not exactly the same as the sun globe. The sun rays are infinitesimal. The sun globe is 1.4 million times the volume of the earth. So there's a oneness and a difference. And we get to bridge that difference by loving devotional service. So Krishna, yeah, we're eternally individuals. And so oneness in the bhakti conception, it's not like I become God. But oneness in the bhakti conception is I align my desires with God's, with Krishna's desires. That's and we retain our eternal personality, our eternal spiritual individuality. So to train ourselves to do that means to take shelter, to hear from, to learn from someone who's already someone who is fully serving, someone whose desires are fully aligned with Krishna's desires, and to kind of admit, like Sanatan Goswami admitted, Arjuna admitted, like, I'm lost here. So we have the opportunity to take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, and to the extent we do that, then we can experience the joy, experience the bliss, the relief from the anxiety and insecurity that comes from misidentifying the self with the body, and the foolishness that comes from misidentifying the self from the supreme self. Yes. So, just like as an analogy, say if a child, a 4-year-old child, wants to cross a busy intersection. Let's make it like a really big city, like 42nd and Broadway in New York City. Okay? Not just like an intersection we might get in Gainesville or Alachua. 42nd and Broadway, it's tough for adults, but like you need to know like the lights. Right, so let's say a 4-year-old, which way does the traffic go? There's an 18-wheel truck. Wow, no chance. But the 4-year-old is very secure crossing the street. But the 4-year-old just lifts his hand and holds the hand of mom or dad. Hold the hands of mom and dad. And even the 4-year-old might not know what all the yellow, red. Okay, but yeah, I'm holding the hand of mom, dad, and I'm completely secure here. I know I'm safe. So we get to hold Srila Prabhupada's hand. He's giving the lifeline, fully representing Krishna. And we get to grab the lifeline, and then we get to use our wonderful propensity for individuality to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission in our distinctive way. So this verse is chapter 13, text 3, Bhagavad Gita. Kshetrayam chapimam vidi sarvakshetreshu bharata kshetra gayorganam yatad matam yatad gyanam matam mama. So this is Sri Krishna speaking to Arjuna. Oh, sign of body. You should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. That's very humble for Krishna to say, Matam Mama. He said, that's my opinion. Krishna said, this is how it is. He has the authority to do that. But Krishna says, in this chapter, Krishna is quoting Vedanta Sutra. So he's quoting the Vedas. He doesn't need to. He is the Vedas. He's the goal of the Vedas. But he's in this mood of like, okay, here's knowledge based on experience, based on logic, based on rationale, based on the Vedas. Please consider for your own highest good. That's a definition of real freedom. The freedom to commit to my highest good. That's real freedom. Right? Otherwise, sometimes we can avoid committing to my highest good because I don't want to be a slave to commitment. I don't want to be trapped because I'm free. Okay, but then I'm not really, because I'm actually controlled. I'm enslaved by fear of commitment. Fear of commitment to that which will really liberate me to my deepest joy, my highest good. So thank you all for listening. And I welcome at this time, if anyone would like to ask any questions or share any comments or realizations. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, Kim.
Hi. I made a bunch of notes, probably too many. But what I was thinking about with what you were saying is, you quoted a few things like the super soul. If we're connected to the super soul in our heart, that it makes it easy to cross over the ocean. And but meanwhile, we're trying so hard to get into this boat and get out of this fire, but we're like so stuck, and I've always been like, when I was a little child, I would pray, but as I got into teenager years, I didn't really pray much. I always felt like, well, if I learn enough, I could beat this or if I read enough or whatever. I was always kind of relying on that, and I think that's important. But I saw a scripture yesterday that I've read before, but I never thought about it a lot, and it's about where the disciples were asking Jesus, how do we gain eternal life or get saved, but basically get out of this material world. And he said some simple things, but still so hard to do, just to be really good and love your neighbor and respect your parents and don't steal and don't commit adultery and don't lie. That was basically what he said. And still they said, well, this is like, oh, and he went on to say, for man, it's so hard. And in that same exact part, he said, for a rich man, it's impossible, like getting through the eye of a camel going through an eye of the needle. And so all that. And then the last thing he said is the disciples thought, well, this is impossible. I mean, how are we going to do this? Even though it wasn't that huge of stuff, but it is so hard when we're here. So hard. And then he said, well, with man, it's impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And it was like, it hit me different when I read that yesterday than it's ever hit me, where I'm always putting it on me, if I learn enough, if I read enough, somehow I can do this, but he put it back to God, and I was thinking, I don't spend enough time begging God to help me out of this, I don't know, and it kind of connected to what you were saying in a lot of ways today. That's all I wanted to say, I think. Just that it really, I'm going to try so much harder to realize, yes, it is impossible for me. I can't probably do it. Well, I can't do it without God. I've got to rely on God and ask God. And that's really not easy for me, but it should be. It should be. So anyway, that's all the thoughts that came to me today when you were talking.
Thank you, Kim. I'm very inspired by what you share. I'm reminded of saying to work like everything depends on us and pray like everything depends on God. So yes, like ultimately it's Krishna's grace. And at the same time, so that's true. And at the same time, we want to be conscious not to develop a victim-y relationship with Krishna, with God. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha, the supreme controller. Like, oh, well, doesn't matter what I do, it's all up to Krishna, so I'll just surf the net for a few hours. I don't know. It's because it's a relationship, right? So like Krishna within our heart, Paramatma, Krishna is reciprocating with our desires. He's not obliged to. At the same time, Krishna says, yeah, he's reciprocating with our desires. So we want to be sincere and show that we're sincere, so that, and the more that I show that I'm sincere, then the more that the static is cleared and I'm actually connected with Prabhupada's guidance and super soul guidance. Still, like even I do that, I'll read these books, I'll fulfill this commitment to chant God's names. Okay, still, Krishna might give us the grace or not. So it's like, it's not like ultimately up to me and my works. At the same time, it's a relationship, and we get to show our sincerity, and then Krishna and Srila Prabhupada reciprocate by giving us deeper enthusiasm to engage in devotional service. And in the whole process, sometimes we might be feeling that joy and inspiration. Sometimes we might be experiencing some form of dark night of the soul. It could be said that when we're not feeling it, that's when we have the greatest opportunity to show our love, to continue with steadiness, to engage the process of sadhana. So, yeah, right. So it's ultimately, 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about 5 factors as the cause of all action. A philosopher named Hutchins related to those 5 factors said, once we commit, then providence moves. Providence is God, Krishna. So it's not like God's bound by our commitment, but when we're committed, okay, then Krishna reciprocates. So yeah, so certain things we can do that will tend to clear our heart. It's like, okay, like yesterday, late in the day, okay, mine's getting a little weak, but I was checking some news, but it was actually, I regard it as my service to check some news, on a particular topic. And it was fine, because like, I felt this actually connected with my service. So like, it felt connected. And, but then, all right, so I did like 1 4-minute video. And all right, it was actually part of my service. But then like, oh, well, that's interesting. Then there was another 4-minute video, then an article. And then I had some vague, I'm beginning to drown in the material ocean. And then, but then practically related to the discussion, I could feel myself by the 3rd click, not attuned to that supernova, to that higher guidance within. I felt my diamond consciousness getting, let's call it, even more covered than it was. So I know, and then like this morning, it was somehow or other, by Krishna's grace, Paramatma in the heart, I rose early before our 5 a.m. Mangalarti. I read some Srimad Bhagavatam, I read some Prabhupada's lectures before 5 a.m. So then, okay, so then I feel relative for myself. I feel clean, clear, crisp, connected with Paramatma guidance. So again, it's not like automatic. In Christianity, there's a whole thing, faith and works. From my point of view, it's all integrated, beautifully resolved and synergized in this theology and philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. And so at the same time, there are works we can do that reveal a sincerity to serve Krishna, and Krishna reciprocates. Thank you, Kim. Ladini Shakti.
Hare Krishna. Well, you said, Dhira, Govinda Prabhu, about like when we start to listen to the super soul, we are safe. So I'm really curious about it, because I thought like one of the function of the super soul is like kind of help us even with our material desires.
Yeah.
So how do I know that it's safe to turn? Well, I mean, in case that I can hear the super soul, how do I know it is safe to like listen what the super soul has to say? That's my question.
Okay, all right, thanks for that. Well, yeah, so super soul is the supreme facilitator. Okay, and so like when Krishna says that with a single fragment of himself, he pervades and supports the entire universe, all mighty, glorious, beautiful creations emanate from just a spark of himself. He's talking about the super soul. First, there's the super soul in the heart is Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, and the super soul of the universe is Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and then call it the whole meta super soul, the super soul of the meta cosmos. That's Karanadakashayi Vishnu. So super soul's supreme facilitator, and as you said, so super soul's facilitating our material and spiritual desires. To the extent that our desires material, super soul will facilitate with material energies. And so that's all true. So what I'm saying is this Paramatma's actual desire is that we turn to him in a spirit of love, in a spirit of devotion. If not loving devotion, loving could be like pretty ambitious, but we turn to him in a spirit of devotion. So that's the actual desire. That's the actual desire. Okay, so like a parent with a child might be, oh yes, yes, that would be so dear to me if you were to do that. Other things the child might want to do, the parent might be, well, okay, I don't recommend it, but okay, see how it goes, have your experience. Okay, so as far as like the Paramatma as a person, Paramatma's actual desire. Now, this question is a good one because we can get confused, let my material mind, my devious, envious, jealous, false ego, well, they're talking to me too. So it's like, well, any of those voices inside, they must be God. They must be God. Probably not. So that's where it's like, kind of like our direct personal relationship with Paramatma in the heart, by definition, as conditioned souls, not so developed. That's why we want to notice a different voice inside, confirm with Srila Prabhupada, confirm with Srila Prabhupada, confirm with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is, through his books, through his lectures, through his sincere followers, and then we can see then we can get affirmation, whether that's like actual super soul's inspiration or simply, yes, or that was a desire of the material mind that sure, a super soul is ready to facilitate it, but it's not actually going to make super soul happy. That's the distinction.
Okay, so turning to the super soul is like meaning like considering the super soul's desires also, and not like turning to the super soul to help me to fulfill my material desires.
Yeah.
And then I would like to share an experience that I had today morning, or a memory. I remember my father, like, I don't know, 12 years ago or something like that, he had an accident and then he lost his memory and he couldn't like remember, he had children, like he was just, then his memory came back eventually, but I know there are people who lose their memory for good. And I feel like this is exactly how I feel in my relationship with Krishna. Like my dad was like looking at us like, what is our relationship? Like, oh, I'm your daughter, like that. So anyway, it just came to my mind how people think that after death they will meet, but even just like a little hit in the head, like the memory is completely gone. And then yeah, the relation, like the forgotten relationship with Krishna really came alive in that memory. But I feel like it anyway.
Thanks for that. I mean, thanks for that example. Your father underwent a painful thing, and then his memory came back. And I think that's a nice analogy. It's not even an analogy, it's the real thing. Not just like I've forgotten all my previous lives of rejecting Krishna, but even in this life, even not just like this life, decades ago, just like, like I'll learn a lesson about, let's say, eating at night. And like when I don't eat at night.
That sounds like a very theoretical example.
Very theoretical, yeah, just a hypothetical example to help you all understand the principle. So like how many thousands of times do I get like I wake up in the morning more enthusiastic to serve Krishna if I don't eat at night? Okay, right, okay. But then how come last night at 9 p.m. I forgot again for the 14,000th time? So it's just this, like I just got a bump on the head, okay? So that's Srila Prabhupada would say, once it was a very leading devotee, very inspiring devotee, and then one day he just left. He just left Krishna conscious. I think a few decades later, he came back. But and so the devotees were devastated. He was a main mentor for them, and they, Prabhupada, what? And Prabhupada said, don't be surprised who leaves, be surprised who stays. So for me, that relates here, just like to my 9 p.m. feasting. It relates here because, Prabhupada sees clearly how deeply rooted is our desires, how deeply rooted is our dedication and commitment to not care what Krishna wants, right? And so we think, no, I'm so sincere now. Okay, so the idea there is the idea of that fact, how deeply rooted. It's not to make us discouraged or depressed, but let that move me to urgency. Let that move me to urgency to take shelter of serving Srila Prabhupada, his mission, and the sadhana program he gave us. Thank you, Ladini Shakti. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anything else? Comments or questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
When I was commenting before that was one of the things I wanted to mention, but I was getting too long. But yeah, what you were just saying, like, it amazes me, like we have such, like with eating, for me, eating is a real issue. So like we have so much in the material world that's helping us to teach us to eat right and to not overeat and not to eat the wrong things. And we have heartburn and weight gain and bad knees that come from it, and just so many things trying to get us to stop this one bad habit. And it's so hard. And it's funny, when I read that scripture that I just said, with man it's impossible, but with God all things are possible. That's what came to me first with eating. I can't even let go of eating, no less all the other things I have to let go of to get out of this material world and go back to Krishna. And that's why that scripture hit me. It's like, I got to stop putting it on me and putting it on, trying to have faith that God will help if I really, ask him. So yeah, this is one of the things I was also thinking about during your talk, and then you actually said it. that's such a great example of the struggle we have here. Such a simple one that we can't even it's so hard to overcome. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I'm encouraged by your sharing that I'm not alone. Okay, so encouraging. Yeah, Sarya Vijajalja Jendre Taiko, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and difficult to control, and is advised to control it, in addition to giving our meager efforts, is to call out the names with love. Jaini Tai, Jaini Mai, chant Hare Krishna, take shelter of the Supreme Powerful. Thank you, Kim. Anandini.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. I'm inspired and moved by this conversation, by your class and this conversation, and this like thanks to Ladini Shakti's video, guided meditation to get guidance from Srila Prabhupada. I practiced that and it's very impactful for me. And I applied it, you know, like in a situation, in a conversation, I wasn't sure like what to do. And I got like a clear voice saying, yeah, just close the conversation. Don't continue the conversation. And it was so far out. I thought it's just my mind. It's just my mind, you know, kind of playing a trick on me. And because it didn't make any sense for me to close the conversation. And I continued the conversation and I got into a lot of trouble and it was just like, I don't know, it wasn't nice. So I'm sitting here like still processing. It was quite impactful. And what shocks me is that, or the question, I don't know, like, am I so far away from what Krishna wants for me or what Srila Prabhupada is pleased with, that even if I do hear a guidance, that I don't listen to it? Or, you know, like, what does it take? Maybe this courage to just follow this like inner guidance. Yeah. So what I'm getting from this conversation here is just some encouragement to stay and be in a conversation with Krishna and not think, or Srila Prabhupada, and not think I should know it all, and then also trust, explore the guidance I get. But there is so much fear.
There's fear there, yeah. Well, I think I'm getting that you effectively responded to your question, and because we can see, you said experienced encourage, and in that word encouragement means encourage. To be encouraged is the word encourage. So I get that to respond, to notice the fear, respond to the fear with courage. You know, if I look at my attempts at my Krishna consciousness career, you know, it's like over the decades in this lifetime, yeah, to make you know, like whatever progress I perceive I made, it's like those times where I connected with some courage to take some quantum leap and to give up some stagnant conceptions, some attachments to what will people think. So yeah, courage seems to be a key quality on that process of transcendental knowledge.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anandini. Parampara, yeah.
Memory and distinguishing different voices, and so I definitely have the experience of hearing something or getting something. Something comes to my mind, comes to my awareness, and then like not following it. Like I know it's a good advice, or it's a thing I should be doing, or it's proper.
Yeah,
like
yes.
Or maybe it's something very practical, like you should turn on a light for the Prabhupada or something, or like,
Yeah.
oh, this food should, I need to offer this first, or I need to, it's like something very obviously like, this is what Prabhupada would want, or this is what, this is something that Super Soul would be, giving suggestion on for sure. It's very clear, and like I don't listen to it, and that seems, sometimes I do listen to it, but then there's just times where I don't listen to it. That seems to be very clear. Like it comes to me, I'm clear, and then I disobey, and that's like, I have that experience. But then I also have the experience of just like complete unconsciousness. But I don't think, so Krishna's giving forgetfulness and remembrance.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, so I could chalk it up to Krishna's giving that either way. But I don't, just to take responsibility or to be the source of, to acknowledge it's like, I know I have some responsibility there, even if it's like something that's just completely blanks my mind, and that's, oh, I completely forgot about that. I don't buy it. Like, I don't buy it completely. So I'm like, what's happening there? And I see that. What I was just thinking is that I could see that when I do put, I can see like the distinction about those times where something comes to my consciousness,
Yeah.
and the times where just not to my
Complete
consciousness,
blank, yeah.
does have to do with my focus and where I am putting my intelligence and my attention and my thoughts in my mind and everything. It has to do because if I am putting my intelligence, like I notice the altar and I think of Prabhupada, and then I get some kind of some practical guidance perhaps.
And you might follow it or not, but that's when you get.
But that's when I get it.
Yeah.
But then, whereas the times that I'm just completely forgetfulness, then I'm probably avoiding. I'm just looking at things. I'm probably avoiding because it's like, if I put my focus on something, then I'll be likely to have something come into my consciousness. Like if I put my focus on spiritual life and something like that, then I'll be more likely to get some indication. Whereas other times, I just completely forgot about that. I didn't even set my alarm. I didn't even think it was about Ekadasi at all. I just ate that bagel for my kids, breakfast. And like those times, it's like probably I'm not, maybe it's unconscious or subconscious, but there's some kind of avoiding, and it's just easier. Obviously, if I'm avoiding or I'm not putting my attention on something, then I'm, less likely to have some kind of.
You can say it's not just random chance that Krishna just whimsically didn't even give you a hint.
Right.
It's something about your consciousness.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of, I wonder more what that's about, and where is the choice point, and so I'm just thinking about that. That's part of the choice point is kind of choosing to avoid or to check out or to just not pay attention. Paying attention. That's kind of what I think a lot of it is. So just got to hear that, and I don't have a question. Just kind of
Thanks for sharing that distinction from personal experience. Ladini.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Thank you, Anandine. I'm inspired in my project to hear your sharing. And what comes to my mind, and I know that maybe it's like not like thrilling or exciting, but at the same time, I think it works to like go to Shri Prabhupada with even small things, like where we don't need any courage to make the decision. Like I'm reminded of Mother Ratneshwari, and she's like really practicing to follow the husband. And like one thing she does when she wants to dress the deities, and she has like hundreds outfits for the deities, she picks three that she likes, and she asks him, which one would you like to put on Radha Govinda this time? And out of the three, she doesn't mind. She would mind out of the 100 that she has. And then Nalinikanta Prabhu decides. And so, like, I think like practicing even with little things, like what would you like Shri Prabhupada for lunch today? Or like, and then we also can get guidance. And then, it's like, it's not like an exciting surrender, like 100% with all aspects of our life. But I think that like trust and connection like strengthens and the faith too, without like needing to make like a big stretch. So I wanted to say that.
Thanks for that, Ladini. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a nice example. And still, when I think, okay, what would you like for lunch? I'm scared he will ask something impossible of me.
Well, you can give him a choice like pasta or rice. Hare Krishna. You don't have to give him like unlimited, like kachoris and samosas and mango from India.
Thank you, Anandini and Ladini. Christy.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Good morning. So I just wanted to say thank you for such a wonderful lesson. And I feel like a lot of times that I'm flailing around trying to jump to get on the boat. And then the more that I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita and doing some study in other Prabhupada books, that I'm flailing, but then it's like I hear Srila Prabhupada say, "Hey, child, why are you flailing around? The boat is docked. Come around this side, and you can get on with Krishna." So I know that sounds kind of silly, but I just thought that I wanted to share that with the group.
Thank you, Christy. Thanks for
Hare
sharing.
Krishna.
I'm moved by your personal realization in extending that analogy. So so you feel like you're flailing, but then here you are like for an hour 15 in this association. You read Prabhupada's books, you follow Prabhupada's guidance to chant Hare Krishna, and then you're experiencing what I'm hearing, Chris, you're experiencing security, reassurance. Prabhupada is actually this is simple. And then that the edge is taken off of the flailing, and you're feeling safe, secure, like the child putting up his hand and holding the hand of the parent. You feel Prabhupada's strong, caring guidance when you associate, like in this sort of discussion. Thanks for sharing, Christy. I appreciate hearing from you. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for your presence and attention and giving your intelligence and heart to Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.